Hello.
Thanks for coming, man.
Of course. No, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad we were able to get it worked out.
Man, I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited. This is kind of personal to me, just because when I was 27 years old, I got into the local union just because I wasn't doing anything else. So this is very, and I'll talk about that later. I definitely want to talk about that later. But so this is this. I'm really excited to have you.
Well, honestly, I can't thank you enough. One, for building the podcast and allowing a forum to really kind of share the opportunities and all the great things that we have to offer from Denver Pipefitters Local 208 and get a chance to tell a little bit about my story. I know we got to work together out in the field a little bit, and it's been a while since I've got to mix it up with all the brothers and sisters out there on job sites. So it's nice to get a chance to sit down and just talk about kind of one, the benefits of being a union member, and two, the apprenticeship program and all the career opportunities that we have available, whether it be at Local 208 or any of the other, building trades affiliates. I think folks, are struggling at times, especially in the metro area with the cost of living going up and trying to find ways to make a decent living without getting kind of buried under the traditional student loan debt. And so, can't thank you enough for having me on and telling me, get a chance to tell a little bit about my story and the local, and of course hear about yours as well.
Yeah, man. So yeah, let's get into that. The I guess we could start with the benefits of a union. I think there's people that definitely don't think there's a benefit to the union, and then there's of course I think people who know a little bit more about it that benefit from it, who obviously think it's great. But I guess let's break that down a little bit. And w- can you talk a little bit about the benefits of the union with the pension and the wages and the health and welfare and all of these things?
So really, it kind of makes sense to look at it from a top level view, and then kind of dig into the details and some of the benefits of my personal experience, your personal experience, and kind of local 208's specifics. But in general, I think unions are very important. They're important to balancing the power in this country. All of our systems are built that way, and that for a reason. And I think that reason is because no matter what, you shouldn't have one person or a small group of people making final decisions that affect everybody. And things change over time. And so if you look at our legal system or our political system, how our government is structured, everything's always been built on the balance of power. And when it comes to economics, when you examine a capitalistic system like what we enjoy here in the U.S., I think it's important. I think capitalism's important and fantastic. I think it's built, the world's strongest economy. At one point in time, the largest middle class in the world existed because of the way our system's set up. But you need to have that balance of power. And so unions give workers a voice. They allow them to come together and collectively bargain and have some leverage at the table. And so if you're a business owner, which is critical to the overall success of our country and our economy, but when you choose to start a business and you choose to enter into an employer role, you have different responsibilities. And so allowing workers to come together and have that voice, I think, provides that important balance to that system. And so you avoid things like, socialistic society or even on the more extreme, communism. Those are where somebody's drawn that line in the sand, and somebody's going to be on the right side of it and somebody's going to be on the wrong side of it. Things also change from time to time. And so when you just set up a system that allows the balance of power, I think those dynamics get a chance to work out as they appear and as they evolve from time to time. For building trades unions like Pipefitters Local 208, I think it's easier to point out significant benefits. We come together as partners with our signatory employers and jointly operate registered apprenticeship programs that provide career training to thousands of individuals without any type of student loan debt. You have industry at the table. You have workers that are experiencing day-to-day tasks in real time, making decisions on how you operate those type of career training programs that I'm sure you'll get to at some point in time as a product of the apprenticeship program. But it was the single greatest career pathway that I could have possibly taken. And so, when you look at the health insurance systems where we build health and welfare trust funds that cover, the members and their entire family with no additional cost. You're not taking money off your weekly paycheck to make sure you got health insurance for your wife or husband or your kids. And then on the retirement side, pension plans. So you just don't see pensions very often anymore. Really, our industry's kind of the last of a dying breed there, which is disappointing. 401ks, annuities, Roths, those are great retirement tools, and certainly going to advocate for everybody that has an opportunity to put away additional retirement savings to do so. In fact, our members, have an annuity plan that they can voluntarily contribute to, and a small mandatory annuity that goes along with the pension. But the big difference on a pension plan, a defined benefit plan, is the risk from the investment side isn't put on you as the individual. It's put on the entire group. And so when you look at one person who's getting close to retirement, and unfortunately, we see a downturn on the market, and that 401k balance that they were planning on being there and being able to use for 20, 25, 30 years of retirement takes a huge hit. And it's right before they plan to retire. Well, now you're really in a tough spot because you don't have a lot of years left to build it back up. And you need that, that solid retirement chunk to get you through that entire retirement. Whereas on a pension plan, the entire group is sharing that risk. And so they're making a promise. And we're saying, Jeremiah, if you work this many years and you earn this many pension credits, this is what that monthly benefit's worth. And you're going to get it every single month to the day you die, no matter what happens to the market. And so you really, provides you a much more stable retirement to plan on and to live on when you get to that point in your career.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I looked at, because I jumped over. I mean, I was on a roof. I was doing metal roofs, and I had applied for the apprenticeship. Ron Apodaca was the one that I knew that told me about it, and I had applied for the apprenticeship, and I got it. I think I was maybe I was on the roofs making like $17 an hour. This was I want to say this was like 2005, and at that time, to get in the apprenticeship, I think you were making like $14 an hour and some change. And when you're younger, every dollar just like makes you it makes you make a decision when it shouldn't sometimes. Because I was looking at, okay, it's 14 something an hour now, but the journeymen are making, I think at that time it was low 30s. Now it's low 40s, right? Isn't it like 43 something an hour?
So, so we just had a wage breakout. It'll go, the raise goes into effect June 1st. After the raise, between the wage and the $3 an hour vacation pay, our journeyman members are making just over $43 an hour, $43.50 an hour.
So $43.50, that equates to, I think it's like I think it's over $80,000 a year. So $43.50. Usually you just times 2,080. So that's $90,480 a year. And if you were to join the apprenticeship today, if you were somewhere, kid working. You're working in the mall, doing retail. You're working, doing oil changes somewhere, and you're like, I'm making $20 an hour, $25 an hour. Why would I go take a pay cut? The wages are not going to be $43.50 in 5 years. In 5 years, they're going to be something higher than that. So that sacrifice that you take on the front end, it's gonna pay you back. Not even at the end. It's going to start paying you back in the middle of your apprenticeship.
Absolutely. And that's, that's a conversation that we have a lot, right?
With younger people.
And we really kind of into that, 18 to kind of mid 30s range of folks coming down and want to learn about.
I got in at 27. Yeah.
In the average age of the 5-year apprenticeship program right now is 27 years old. We get a lot of veterans coming out of the military, and of course, even if they just served the 4-year term, that's putting them in that 22 age range. A lot of the veterans have served more than a 4-year term, and maybe they're coming out of the military after 7 or 8 years, and so that puts them kind of squarely right into that mid-20s range. But the long-term benefits are what we try to focus on. Now, you can't ignore the starting wages either, because everybody's in a little bit different situation. For me, I was very similar to you. After high school, I went to college. I was going to be a mechanical engineer. I was not applying myself in school. I was really just wasting a bunch of my own money, and kind of messed around for 2 years, and finally came down and got a job as a pipe tradesman when I was 20, and then got accepted into the apprenticeship about 8 or 10 months later. So right before I turned 21, I didn't have a family or a wife, and a lot of those kind of big bills that happen when you're having a young family. And so I could take that, $4 an hour pay cut to get started, knowing that in the long run, at the end of that 5-year program, and I got to that journeyman wage, that I was going to be much, much better off. And the ceiling at kind of, some of those typical jobs is just not very high. You can do well, but you're not going to get into that, what we're talking about, 43, 50, in that 80, 90, 100,000 a year range. So the tough part is when you have somebody who's maybe in their late 20s or early 30s, and they do have a family, and they have a wife or a husband, or they have a couple kids. Sometimes that decision's a little bit tougher because they have mortgages or they have rent, they have all these bills, and that starting wage is important that we keep it high enough that we're not cutting off access to some of those folks that just trying to make the math problem work to get into the trade.
Yeah, that's the way. I definitely looked at the calculator when I went to get in, but I didn't have, the wife and kids at that time either. But I think I did have 2 children, but they were living with their mother. But I think it would benefit people if they could to sacrifice for a few years, maybe get a 1-bedroom apartment, cram everybody in there, eat chicken and rice, and because, man, after a few years, the benefits are just tremendous. And then after that, even the benefits in the end with the pension and the health and welfare that goes all along the way and everything else, the skill set. I mean, after I got into the apprenticeship, I remember my brakes went out in my car. They just went out. I had an old car when I first got in. Most people do, right? Then they start getting those. Become a 2nd and 3rd year apprentice. Then they start buying $70,000 trucks. But my brakes went out, and I diagnosed the problem and fixed it. That's something I wouldn't have done before I had a couple years in the apprenticeship. And well, this is the same thing. I built my addition on my house. I did all the electrical myself because it was the same thing. It was a supply, a return, and a drain, the same as our piping. I learned so much that I could apply to other things.
And you're absolutely right. Like all the intangible stuff, there's very little projects that I don't feel comfortable taking on. And whether that be jumping on a Bridgeport mill or a lathe, which I did over the weekend to make some custom parts that you just couldn't find, working on your own vehicle, working on your own house, that skill set's transferable to a multitude of different things. Obviously, we're focused on pipe fitting as the trade, or HVAC service as the trade when you're in the apprenticeship program. But you're absolutely right. The systems are very similar, and you're going to be a competent mechanic overall, and have that skill set to do a lot of those things. On the long-term goals, one, I think it's also important because you hit it on the head, right? A lot of folks are starting in, they're making whatever vehicle they have work for what it is. And then they get into that, like you said, 3rd year, 2nd year, 4th year of the apprenticeship. All of a sudden, now the parking lot looks like we rolled up to a brand new, Ford or Dodge dealership with the big dualies and the lifted trucks all over the place. And I think that's important. Our 1st year apprentices are starting right at $23 an hour right now. So it's a good starting wage. but they get 10% raises every year. So as long as they're going to class, as long as they're meeting their on-the-job training requirements, now those raises come quick, and before you know it, you're well on your way to that full journeyman scale at $43.50 an hour.
Oh, it's definitely worth sacrificing for a few years or a couple years. Definitely worth it. I mean, because if you don't make that sacrifice, you're 10 years later still at that other job, still making that $25 an hour. And you didn't want to give up that $2 an hour because you were so focused on that. And those other guys that left and did that, now they're making 30, 35. They're working towards that 43.50.
Well, and they're out 10 pension credits.
Yeah.
Right. So it's what is in the bank right now, helping you meet the day-to-day expenses, but also before you know it, it's you're 60, 62, 65, and you're wanting to retire, you're wanting to move into that portion of your life, but you can't. The last thing I want to see is anybody happen to work until they're 75, 80 years old because they can't afford to retire because they don't have that savings. And so, once you sit down and really kind of actually crunch the numbers and go through the math problem, it's really, really hard to ignore how much better off you would be if you get into a program like ours.
Yeah, I took all of my paychecks and put them in the bank, and I invested in properties. And now, I'm not trying to brag, but I got in the apprenticeship at 27 years old. I'm 47 now, and I can retire right now. I'm not going to retire right now because I want more toys, right?
Yeah, we all do. We all do.
But I could if I wanted to, and I could live just fine.
And same, I got in, like I said, right before I was 21. I completed the apprenticeship. I was in my mid 20s. And before I knew it, I was running work on multi-million-dollar projects, in charge of expansions all over the place, whether it be, Miller Coors Brewery. The last project I ran before I came in as the training director for the apprenticeship program was Breckenridge Brewery. I mean, building really cool stuff. I had my own house. And now, you never want to kind of measure yourself against your friends, your neighbors, because you hope everybody's doing well and being successful. But where I'm at in my career right now, I know everybody I grew up with, everybody I went to school, regardless of what path they took, I'm right in the middle with the best of them. And so, I didn't have to spend $50,000, $60,000 to put myself through college. And I got a really good career and in a position where now I'm clearly, going to be able to retire in that, 60, 65 range, because I got some toys I still want to get in the garage before
Absolutely.
I get to that point. But it's about how do you provide a good living for yourself, your family, so you have a rewarding career, you're taken care of financially, and then you have that balance where you can go on vacation with your family, you can go on that hunting trip, or you can go buy that boat. Because you got to have some fun and some enjoyment in your life too, right?
Absolutely. You touched base on the VIP program a little bit. I think that's very important because of a lot of veterans. I'm sure they hear about a lot of these programs. I'm sure they know about them. But can you touch base on that a little bit and what the benefits or what the opportunity is there for the VIP program?
Yeah. So it made a lot of sense. One, we have a tremendous amount of work coming our way, and here locally in Denver, but all across the country. I mean, really, with the Infrastructure Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS Act, I mean, there's massive projects and a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built, and so we need more workers. That's clearly a need from the industry side of things. And so when we look for qualified people, veterans coming out of the military just have been a really great fit and a tremendous benefit to our industry. A lot of the same things that they folks experience in the service, like a brotherhood, like working with a team, is duplicated in our industry and our trades. Now, you've been on the job sites when you have a crew, 30, 40 people, 50, 100 members on one project. You really are looking out for each other. You're working together to build that. And so it's a natural transition. And so there's a couple different tools that we utilize. Helmets to hard hats is really a good program nationwide that's that's just aimed at getting information out to veterans as they're transitioning out of the service. And so that's just really kind of how they find out about what apprenticeship programs are available, how to apply, where to apply. And then for the UA, the United Association, our international, it's been a number of years now, well over a decade, I think, that they started our Veterans in Piping program, or our VIP program. And so the very first start was at Camp Pendleton out in California. And so you had to get the base commander to sign off on bringing this program on the base. They had to have some changes to federal legislation to make it all legally possible. But what we aim to do, and what we are doing now on 8 different bases, is as veterans are getting ready to muster out of the service, we have these Veterans in Piping programs that provide an 18-week accelerated training offering. And so it's in welding, HVAC service, or sprinkler fitting currently. And so if you're a Marine at Camp Pendleton and your term's getting ready to end, you're looking at what you're going to do as you transition out of the service. This 18-week accelerated program, the welding program, was offered at Camp Pendleton. You get to enter in that while you're still actually in the Corps, right? And so you're receiving your military pay. It's just like anything else that you've done in the service. And you complete that 18 weeks of accelerated training before you actually are discharged. With successful completion of the accelerated VIP program, then you get a placement at whatever local of your choice. So a lot of times service members are wanting to come back home, or maybe not. Maybe they met somebody and they want to go to a different part of the country. So they can literally pick any local in the country and say, I want to be direct entered into that apprenticeship program. And so they get to bypass the entire application process that's typical. They get directly entered into that apprenticeship program. We give them a year's credit because they completed the 18 weeks of 40, 50 hours worth of training each week and come with welding certifications and a skill set. And so they don't have to worry about it. It's all figured out.
So did they start as second-year apprentices?
So at Local 208, what we do is we actually start them in first-year classes because we don't want them to miss out on any trainings that are going to benefit them for that entire career period, but they receive second-year wages.
Oh,
and so
nice.
They do the 5 years of training, but they get that head start. The other great thing is because it's a registered program, they qualify for their GI Bill benefits. And it works differently than somebody, say, transitioning out of the military and going to a traditional university or college, where the GI Bill benefits really are going to offset tuition costs. Because we have no tuition, they actually receive that money directly to them. And it's based off their on-the-job training hours. And so, like we talked about, first-year apprentices are starting at 50% of journeyman scale. Our second-year apprentices at 60%. The GI Bill augments those wages. And so in addition to earning their normal paychecks, the GI Bill benefit comes through once a month, and that money goes directly to them to help them offset their bills if they have a family, if they have a mortgage. And then as they progress in the apprenticeship program, they're making more and more money on the check, just like every other apprentice. And so the GI Bill benefit monthly, stipend kind of reduces as they move along. And so it helps kind of, address any of that concern when you're coming out of the military, transitioning back into civilian life, and worrying about how you're going to pay your bills, how are you going to have the benefits. All that's all taken care of. And so, the UA's operating the VIP program at Joint Base Lewis McChord up in Washington, Camp Pendleton in California, Fort Carson here in Colorado, Fort Hood down in Texas, Fort Still in Oklahoma, Camp Lejeune in Carolina, Fort Campbell in Kentucky, and then Norfolk Naval Base. We're at Norfolk. We operate, the UA operates the HVAC program, and that's because the Navy didn't want us poaching their welders. They wanted to hang on to them a little bit.
For those submarines.
Yeah. There's some tight welding on all them ships.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you guys have also, very interested in the kids that are in, not necessarily kids, but the guys and gals, the people that are in the welding schools. Because that's a place where I've known some people that were in welding schools, and this had to be man, this was like 15 years ago. And they were having a hard time getting placed. Maybe it was like 10 years ago. They were having a hard time getting placed out of the welding school. And I was talking to them. I said, hey, well, why don't you come over, check out, Local 208 in Denver, the pipe fitters. And because I'd seen some of their welds. They're pretty good. They're TIG welding, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, well, I don't know. The school was saying, there's some other stuff. But I know you've made some major advances in dealing with the welding schools and the students there, right?
So yeah, we've actually got a lot of really good, strong partnerships. Both, one, I've been pleasantly surprised and encouraged that we've seen kind of a change in the culture or the overall thought process when it comes to evaluating the careers available, like Pipefitters Local 208 provides. And so K through 12 schools have really made a renewed focus on offering CTE courses and welding programs and things to high school students, but also the trade schools like Lincoln Tech or Red Rocks or Warren Tech or Front Range Community College, Emily Griffith. So, knowing that there's talent coming out of those classes and clearly individuals that are showing an inclination to the daily tasks that we're going to do every day in our industry, we wanted to make sure those folks knew what we had to offer and were coming down and applying for our program. In welding, there's all kinds of different welding jobs, and they come with all kinds of different wage and benefit packages. Now, if you're going to take just kind of an average welding job, say at a manufacturing facility, where you're kind of welding parts that are coming along an assembly line, typically you don't see huge wages and benefit packages offered to those workers. It's going to be on the lower end of the scale. Our members and our welders, they're making X-ray quality welds on very critical systems, and so the skill set's got to be extremely high, and I think that's why our wages and benefits reflect that increased skill set. So anybody coming out of those programs is highly encouraged to come down and apply. The schools are being great partners with us. A lot of times they're bringing the entire class down for tours of the training facility before they complete, to let them know that, hey, this is how you apply for the apprenticeship program at Local 208. And then our training directors and the business agents and everybody that kind of works full time down at the facility are constantly attending job fairs hosted by whether it be a trade school, a tech college, or a K through 12 CTE program. I think last year we attended 98 different job fairs, all across the spectrum, and so really have seen a good uptick and a really great partnership and relationship with those schools out there.
Yeah, and the training also. I wanted to talk about the training throughout the 5-year apprenticeship and beyond. I mean, journeymen come back and do upgrade classes, and they can continue their training all the time. And did you guys double the facility, or is it like a third more? Or is it almost double more?
So we added 10,000 square feet. So that's about a third. And that we finished that build out. I think it's been about 2.5 years now. Great training facility. You of course you were there, you went through it for your 5 years. So it's 7 total acres, in North Denver. And right now with the new addition, we have just over 40,000 square feet of training space. And so, we added a brand new, boiler lab, with in-floor radiant heat, snow melt systems, digital controls, the latest and greatest, high efficiency equipment. So the students are working on exactly what they're going to see out. The apprentices are going to be, working on exactly what they're seeing out in the actual field at customer buildings. We also added the new Daikin variable refrigerant flow system, and so kind of an all-electric option. It's a heat pump system that they can cool and heat the classroom spaces, and so we utilize that as a trainer. Added a brand new orbital welding lab, which is that semi-automated welding process that's utilized at the biopharmaceutical manufacturing facilities or semiconductor manufacturing facilities, as well as a couple more classrooms for theory-based training. And so we were excited. We're about every 15 to 20 years, we've been fortunate enough to have the reserves and the increased need to continue to expand that training facility. And so we still have plenty of land. We'll be looking at it here before too long, building more buildings. But our annual training budget is about $1.5 million a year. That's all paid for by hourly contributions that are negotiated between the members and the employers, and that's how we can offer $40,000 education to somebody for really free.
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. First, I want to say, man, the training facility looks amazing. Good job. Good job on that. Great job.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
it was great when I went through, and then with the added buildings, it's even better. So it's amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank
you.
So yeah, so if somebody wants to come down, they're thinking, oh, you're telling me not to go to college, or not go to college, but it's an alternative to student debt. And maybe a lot of people go to college and don't know what they want to do. Maybe, they're thinking that's the right thing to do, take some basic classes. But as an alternative, what is the cost for the apprenticeship?
So our apprentices pay $200 a year in tuition. And so
that covers books and everything, right?
That's everything. Yeah. Everything out of pocket. There's absolutely nothing else that to the individual student or the apprentice. And the reason why we did that is we want to have the apprentices have some kind of financial buy-in to the program.
They got to pay for the books.
And the books, a $200 tuition, basically what that works out is it offsets typically about a third of the total cost just for textbooks. All the other costs. So when it comes to paying the instructors, operating the facility, getting the materials down, everything else that goes into operating both the apprenticeship and continuing education programs is all covered out of the training trust fund.
So is the total, you say it's about $40,000, you think, to put someone through the apprenticeship?
Yes. And so that's the way some of the years are a little bit more cost intensive than others.
Right.
And that's because like first years, we're really focused on safety. We're kind of focused on the theory side because we want to make sure they're safe out on the job sites. Yeah. Trade related math, trade related science.
Yep.
And so, those classes are a little bit cheaper for us to put on, as opposed to say, when they're in their third, fourth, and fifth year and they're welding on the construction side. When you're buying 6-inch Schedule 40 pipe and welding rods and gases and all the consumables and materials that are required to put on classes like that, those ones are a little more, economically intensive. And so, but on average, that's about what it costs, is about $40K for the 5 years. And I think you made a great point.
But it's, for someone to go in, it's $200.
That's it. Every year, $200.
$200.
They pay $1,000 out of pocket total.
5 years.
Across the entire 5 years.
Amazing.
And like we talked about, they're starting at $23 an hour, so they're making money.
Yep.
A little over 3/4 of the learning actually happens on the job site. And so the requirements are still the same as when you went through, which they have to do at least 1,700 hours on the job each year of on-the-job training, supervised by a qualified journeyman. And then they do 252 hours
but that's
each
paid
school year.
1,700 hours.
Correct.
That's paid. You got
every hour on the job they're getting paid.
Yep.
252 in the classroom, which is on their own time. We do night school. So at the end of the 5 years,
it's not
they've
that
done,
hard. For anybody who's listening, it's not that hard.
It's really not.
I actually did perfect attendance for 5 years. I got the plaque. I should hang it up, man.
You should.
Yeah.
I didn't get the plaque for perfect attendance. I always missed 1 or 2 classes a year just because I always went hunting.
Yeah.
And then just made sure I was there the rest of the time. But
yeah,
at the end you get 8,500 hours on the job. That's all paid. Starting at 23, and by the time you end, you're at that full, 4,350 now, and then it's 1,260 hours in the classroom. The great part is now you don't even have to make a choice between doing an apprenticeship program or going to college. With us and what we've done now, they're going to get both. If you come and apply for our program. So we thought about this, and I thought about it a lot when I was a training director and then when I became business manager. So this is a conversation that started, now 5 years ago. Talked to our employers, our contractor partners, and said, well, what do you think about accrediting our apprenticeship program as a college? Then we could offer the best of both worlds. We're not asking somebody to not go to college. We're taking away the financial aspect of getting a degree. And so now, this whole conversation started back then and really looking at COE, the Council on Occupational Education, as a possible accrediting body. We knew we needed to get somebody helping us, to navigate the higher education world. And so at the time, our Contractors Association had a really good relationship with the construction management department up at Colorado State University. And the department director at the time was Dr. Mustafa Khattab. And so we actually went up to talk to Mustafa and really try to pick his brain on folks we could talk to and approach about possibly serving as a college president as we try to go down this pathway of accrediting our program. And to our delight and much surprise, Dr. Khattab response was, well, what about me? Would I be somebody you'd consider? And of course I was blown away and absolutely. But he had, his, fascinating story. He'd come from Egypt. When he first came to the States, he worked at University of Nebraska there in Lincoln in their construction management program, found his way over to CSU. At Colorado State, when he took over as the department director, they had issues. They had some things they really needed to fix in the construction management program. And really kind of possibly in danger of losing accreditation for that program. Mustafa completely turned it around. It's now one of the best programs in the entire country. Continually competes at their annual competitions and places as best in the country. And so he what he told us is, I accomplished my goals here. The program's in a really good spot. I'm getting towards the end of my career. I would really enjoy a new challenge before I actually decide to retire. And what you guys are doing really intrigues me. And so we were lucky enough to bring on Dr. Khattab. He introduced us to the American Council for Construction Education, which is the accrediting body that accredits every CM program at every university in the country. Great organization. We were fortunate to run some legislation here in Colorado. We had kind of slightly changed some laws there to let us, utilize ACCE as an accrediting body. We've completed accreditation. Pleased to share that our program's fully accredited from the American Council of Construction Education. We've completed the recognition process, so now we're recognized by the Colorado Department of Private Occupational Schools. So we're a legitimate college, Western States College of Construction. And right now, the only thing that we have left to do is we need to get degree granting authority. And so some more steps going. We've started our pilot program with a whole cohort of recent graduates from the apprenticeship program. And the idea is here in the next year or 2 years, once we secure degree granting authority, our apprentices will complete not with just their journeyman certificate and license, but an associate's degree as well. And long term, we'll see what we can do as far as trying to get people pathways to a bachelor's if that's something they choose. But they don't have to pick between them anymore. We're going to be right there, and the first in the nation.
Yeah, man, that all sounds good. You've been doing a lot, man, for the local, and I think the UA in general across even the United States has been pretty progressive over the last decades.
I think so. I think we've been fortunate to have really good leaders. General President Haidt was a really good general president. He really kind of moved the UA in a good direction. And since he retired in 2016 and General President McManus has taken over in that role, he's just continued to push it forward. The efforts we've made on organizing workers that are currently on the non-union sector, the recruitment efforts, the VIP programs. I mean, really what we're trying to do is help people find that fulfilling, rewarding career that allows them to take care of their family. At the same time, it helps us meet our needs from an industry perspective and from a local union perspective. And so it's been a pleasure to work in my role and work with our international. In 2021, I was fortunate enough to get elected as the district vice president. And so in addition to my role as business manager at Pipefitters Local 208 here in Denver, the UA divides basically the entire United States and Canada up in 6 different districts. And so District 5 is the 11 Western states. And I'm really getting a chance to work with those other locals and see what they're doing and bring all those good ideas back to Colorado too.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I didn't know that. That's amazing, man.
Yeah, it keeps me busy.
Yeah.
My girlfriends might not be terribly excited about my travel schedule these days, but it sure is a pleasure getting out to help folks. And really, like I said, the more you meet good people, the better ideas come forward, and the better everybody gets off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to maybe get into, I know there's a lot of stigmas around non-union, and I didn't want to get too dramatic on this issue. Just wanted to touch base on it a little bit, just more for an information's sake. I know we have a lot of people who are in the trades who are non-union and maybe struggle with companies. And some companies, maybe not, but some that maybe do not hold those standards for safety and things like that and other things. What would you tell somebody who is not only in the trades that's in non-union, but also other people that are on the non-union side that may be working anywhere, and what advice would you give them, or what feedback do you have for that?
The first thing I would say is keep an open mind. I think there's just a lot of folks that just don't maybe know what there is to be offered out there, and so that our job is to welcome people, to educate them about the things that we can do to help improve their lives, or help them along their career goals. And so come down and see us and talk to us. There's a lot of really great craftsmen and trades folks out in the country that maybe are working non-union, just didn't have the chance or the opportunity to experience employment on the union side of things. There was a study released here just recently through the National Mechanical Contractors Association that partnered with a lot of large end users. And so I thought it was important because these are ultimately our customers, right? These are people that are asking us to build their facilities for them. And the study results were pretty eye-opening to me. One, when they utilized an all-union construction workforce, projects on average came in 4% cheaper than the non-union competition. A lot of that was attributed to schedule and scope. So one of the biggest benefits is utilizing an all-union construction workforce resulted in, I believe it was 14 or 15% more likelihood to finish on time or ahead of schedule. And anybody that's been in construction knows that time is one of the big cost drivers. When you have overruns, when you can't meet project schedules, it does a lot of different things, especially when you're having tight areas and you need to get multiple crafts, and it just kind of screws things up and ultimately results in cost overruns at the end of the project. The other big key statistic was all union projects were significantly less likely to experience manpower turnover. And so that meant the same workers are there, which is critical to keep that continuity and understanding where things are at in the construction phase. And so the reason that is because of the increased training and the increased focus on safety, I believe. The increased productivity comes from workers receiving that training. And all my time out in the field and even outside of pipe fitting, I think for the most part, people want to go to work and do a good job. They want to have a good feeling when they're leaving that day that they accomplished something, that they contributed to something bigger than themselves.
And they were treated well in the process.
Yeah, they
were safe.
Yeah, they got to go home, right? Going home to your family the same way as when you left is important. Number one, most important thing that we can make sure is people shouldn't have to get hurt or be exposed to unsafe environments just to earn a paycheck and support themselves and their family, and they want to have success. If they don't have the training, if they're not getting an opportunity to really understand what they're being asked of, it makes it very hard to be productive. And so, if you want to make a little extra and compare wages and benefits because it all matters, and you want to have free access to training, come down and see us. We're going to welcome you with open arms, and we want you to be part of our team.
Yeah, it's great. Mike, you were telling me about when you worked at a corporation. Can we say the name?
We'll just say it's one of the big retailers. Logos maybe same color as Jeremiah's shirt over there.
It's maybe a bullseye.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, so I worked as a executive, which fancy word for manager. for somewhere around 7 years, something like that. And the word union was a real dirty word. Real dirty word. No, even for managers, no education on what union looks like, what it means when you're in that type of job, a retail job.
Did any of you guys really know anything about unions?
No.
Did
Absolutely
any of the
not.
employees know anything about unions?
No, because it was placed on us as managers to actively combat that. So there was training that we would do. I want to say it was at least once a year. It could have been more often than that. What would you do in the case of you overheard somebody say the word union in the break room, and there was a hotline to call that you would immediately report, and there were scripted lines about how it's so bad for the employees and how it wouldn't do them any good. And then, you'd call the hotline, and then you'd get a visit at your store from some higher up somewhere to shut it down really quickly. So there's absolutely no education, and they're actively fighting against it. So I've never had a lot of education on what union looks like. All I know is that it's a bad word.
It's a bad word. And unfortunately, that's not that uncommon. I mean, a lot of the big companies, are actively going to go out there and try to squash any type of discussions or possibility of workers coming together to form a union. How dare they get a voice and come together and have a say in their workplace, which is crazy to me. I mean, we have so many good laws on the federal level when it comes to, the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, and kind of the Department of Labor's role in ensuring that workers have that fair opportunity. The problem is the average, person out there. If I wasn't a elected union official, there's no way I would have been studying, National Labor Relations Board rulings and understanding, what is protected activities and concerted activities. That's just something that, it doesn't come up in everyday conversation. So a lot of workers out there are being taken advantage of and have no idea that these things are in place, which is sad. We had some welders, and I won't say the name of the company, but some welders that were working for a company here in Colorado that reached out to us. And it was a little bit untypical because it wasn't pipe fitters, right? It wasn't necessarily in kind of the building construction trades that we typically serve in, but they had heard about us and the link between the welding side of things was there, and so they asked us to come meet them and just talk to them a little bit about what they could do and how they could form a union or join the local if they wanted to. And so, we took them out, grabbed a bite to eat, just an initial conversation, say, look, this is kind of how you form unions. This is how, workers would have to come together. This is how you get recognition. And, if you wanted to associate with our local, we'd be more than happy to represent you. And so very informal, no commitments. Nobody was, rushing to do anything. And so we wrapped up. It was probably 8:00, on a weekday. The next day, by 1 p.m. the next day, that lead welder that had reached out to us, somehow the supervisors had found out, like he said, that conversation in the break room about forming a union, joining a union, really dealing with some unsafe, environments in this facility. They fired him.
Keep the mic close to you.
Yeah,
You're losing out.
They fired him by 1:00 the next afternoon.
Oh, they got fired? For talking to you?
Just for talking to me.
Wow. Just for educating themselves.
That's it. Just to learn what it was. And
they
what
didn't
it was
sign up. They didn't say yay or nay. They just say, hey, what's going on over here?
Nobody signed a recognition card. Nobody did anything.
That doesn't sound
All
like,
we did was
doesn't
talk
sound like
about
a free country to me.
No. And so in that case, they came back to us and that's the last thing I would want to see happen. We're here to help people. And it felt like, we did the opposite with these folks, right? We got somebody fired just for simply talking to us.
Wow.
So what we did as a local, because that's not right, and we know the rules, and that's illegal. Employers aren't allowed to do that. Talking about forming a union, those kinds of things are protected activities. penalties under the NLRB.
Would your ex-employer have fired people, you think, if they would have been talking about it?
I'm not sure. I never had that happen. I never called the hotline. I don't think I would have if I heard somebody talking about it. But I think it's a possibility.
Well, sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Sorry.
no. So we got a hold of our attorney, and we filed an unfair labor practice with the NLRB on this company for wrongfully terminating this individual, and they went through the whole process, and it was probably 3, 4, or 5 months later, however long it had been, a few months since this all happened, and the NLRB ruled in our favor, and rightfully so, because they fired this person clearly in retaliation for having conversations about possibly firing, forming a union. And so the nice part is they had to give him back pay, and so they had to pay his wages just as he had been working the entire time until the ruling came up. And so it really was a big boost to the individual. Now, I don't blame him, and I'm not surprised that he had no interest in going back to work for that company. And so once the ruling came out, they left. And unfortunately, it did have the effect that the company wanted, which was they scared every other worker in that plant away from having any more conversations with us or any more conversations about forming a union. And so those kinds of bullying tactics happen more often than not, and they're not talked about. And so anybody out there listening, unions are out there fighting for all workers, right? None of these were 208 members. They were trying to do what they're legally should be able to do, and were retaliated against, and so we were there to stand up for them regardless of how it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes back to how the union is there for the worker, and not against the employers, but working in conjunction with the employers. Now, I mean, I'm a project manager for one of the contractors now, and I mean, I'm upper management, so I'm hand in hand with the owner, and our owner is all for protecting the rights along with you in a partnership.
Yeah. And most of, all our signatories are the same way. They're and I don't want to make it seem like every company out there is bad and looking to take advantage of workers, because that's not the truth. There's lots of really good companies out there treat their workers great. But I'm a 4th generation member. I don't know if you know that. So my great grandfather was the first one of our family to join Local 208 coming out of the Great Depression. And I've had a lot of conversation. When my grandpa was still around, I would talk to him about it. And really, it is that partnership, right? So a local, we have a duty to represent our members. But the agreement, the collective bargaining agreement, really benefits both, because the companies know exactly what they can expect and exactly what we're supposed to deliver as their manpower, as their labor.
Trained.
Yeah, you expect a trained, qualified member to show up and be able to execute their daily tasks. Our standards of excellence, showing up on time, staying productive throughout your shift, all the things that actually make a good
attention to
employee.
safety.
Yeah, safety minded.
So now the contractor's not worrying about getting, having medical bills or other insurance claims for injuries.
Well, and in construction, you know how critical it is. If you're having accidents and you're actually reporting them like you should, if you're what they call your EMR, right, which is your rating on your insurance, your workman's comp, if that gets too high, a lot of customers and users aren't even going to allow you to bid on their projects. You're not welcome on site.
Yeah, so the contractors getting the skilled craftsmen that, understand safety, that are educated, skilled,
and certified, right? So in the
Certified.
construction industry, we have a lot of certification requirements, rightfully so. So if you need somebody, industrial rigging certified, we offer 87 different type of welding certifications.
87?
Every type of process, every type of base metal, anything you can think of, we can certify, welders to. Our CFC universal, so they can handle refrigerants. It goes on and on and on and on. Those are things that a contractor can go focus on going and getting projects and winning work. not how they're going to go out and recruit and find people they need to build and execute their work and figure out how they're going to train and certify them. They just call us.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to touch base on with you about. It's like if somebody looks at something, right? If somebody's like, oh, the plumber local, or the sheet metal local, or the pipe fitter local, people who do not know what we do, like I didn't know. When I first met Ron Apodaca, all I seen was the guy had a nice house, his wife had a nice SUV, his kids were all coming back from sports programs, and I said, man, what is it? This guy has like everything. He's got money. I'm like, what do you do? Like, I thought this guy like owned a company. He's like, I'm a pipe fitter. And I'm like, what is a pipe fitter? So for people who do not know, for the trade you and I are in, people may think welding. They've heard welding, but there's so many different things. Like, not just being the apprentice, the journeyman, then possibly opportunities for foreman, general foreman, superintendent. There's other roles, executive positions they can get within the companies they work for, like project engineers, project managers, even presidents. We've almost every president out there of these mechanical contracting companies comes from our trades.
Correct. Estimators, virtual design. So the CAD operators, controls, building automation. I mean, there's just a multitude of opportunities just inside the pipe fitting trade. And I'm, like I said, I was fourth generation. I still didn't know what a pipe fitter was. As a kid growing up, I had no idea other than, I knew my dad went off to work and he used to wear bib overalls when he was still, out in the field. And other than that, I didn't know much. And a lot of folks, when you run into them, when I say, well, I'm with pipe fitters, they'll say, what is that? Is that like a plumber? Which, I guess so, in the sense that we both work with pipe, but very different type of piping systems. And so reach out, because even if you're talking about an electrician or a sheet metal worker or plumber or pipe fitter, whatever it might be, each one of those trades is going to have, a whole other subset of positions and opportunities in them. So definitely, reach out to whatever, type of trade, whatever local you're looking or might be interested in, and find out what it is. For us on our contractors, probably well over half of our owners went through the apprenticeship program just like you and I. Now they decided they wanted to start a company. Now we have a really great a new owner that's been doing a great job. And Tom Teska started Elite Refrigeration, and so he turned out, I'm guessing 4 or 5 years now. Started his company about 2, maybe 3 years ago. Is already up to, I think we have 8 members total dispatched to him working. He's got all kinds of customers all over the metro area and really building that company out. And so you can do anything you want, and you're rightfully so, even up to the senior management positions, or project managers, project engineers, estimators, detailers, the control side. The list just goes on.
I forgot about
and
the
on.
CAD department. Yeah, you mentioned the CAD department.
Yeah. So we started, and the CAD side's changed a lot, even since we were kind of out in the field doing it day to day. A lot of hand drawn isometric drawings. Now, with the 3D scanners, with the Trimble systems that you're actually designing in your CAD space on the computer, then taking out a robotic layout station and shooting points all over a building. There's just some phenomenally interesting parts of that of our job and our trade. The other one is we hosted a Women on the Tools event Saturday, March 4th. And so the Women in the Trades Committee did a really great job of putting this job fair on and wanting to demonstrate all the hands-on type of activities or tasks that a pipe fitter could find themselves doing on a day-to-day basis. And so Liliana Sosa, fantastic member of ours, working for a controls contractor, one of our signatory controls, brought down her laptop and a lot of parts that she's working with on a day-to-day basis on the building automation stuff. but she was showing people how she's actually drawing and designing the graphics. And so now when you think about a pipe fitter, I'm sure they're probably not thinking about jumping into a computer and designing graphics. And so you can build out that automation system, and somebody can walk up and see, okay, well, clearly this is a chiller now, this is a boiler, these are these equipments. And so it's not just, trying to draw lines and label them that. You're actually building out the graphics to demonstrate and show all the components.
Yeah, I think the initial it's like a tree that just branches in our industry. I think the initial paths with the schooling, when you start like first, second year, is construction, fitter, welder, service side, right? That's one of the options. What other ones initially?
So we're starting to adjust the overall curriculum a little bit. And so the HVAC service apprentices have their entire 5-year curriculum now. And so when I got in, we were all together in the first 2 years of classes, both service and
When I went, it
construction.
was the first year, and then it branched off in the second year.
So now
Yep.
they're going right into it, a full 5-year curriculum specific for the HVAC service side. And then for the construction apprentices, we haven't finished building it out yet, but the idea is they're going to do basically 3 years of kind of general education and cover all the basics. And then those last 2 years, that 4th and 5th year, we want to give the apprentices their choice. And so they could do one of 3 different pathways. They could take like a fitter leadership role that's going to focus, more on that, how you be a good supervisor, how you lay jobs out, how you kind of fulfill that full fitter role. They could take a welder pathway. The focus there obviously is going to be on getting welding certifications and getting prepared to make those X-ray welds and kind of the critical welds on those systems. Or they can take a virtual design path, and that's just because the software that's currently being utilized is just it's become very, very advanced, and so you need to have that. Where our contractors have struggled in the past is if you bring in somebody who spent went to college and learned, about the software and, how to operate the computers. They don't know anything really about the mechanical systems that we're being asked to design and ultimately install. And so they struggle because they don't really know how to design those systems as they need to work, whether it be a hydronic system or process piping, whatever it is. The challenge, as somebody that maybe spent all their time out in the field and focused on the technical install side, they understand hydronics. They understand all the things that we learned on how to make mechanical systems operate properly, but they don't really know how to get into that software on the computer and really do that kind of technical design. And so this is really, I think, going to make a good blended pathway with that 3 years of kind of base knowledge, really focused on understanding the mechanical systems we're working on, and then having 2 full years as a 4th and 5th year apprentice to really dig in deep into that virtual design track. And like I said, now it's not just on the computer doing, AutoCAD. Now it's, let's get the 3D scanner in and scan an existing mechanical room, show them how to upload and import that into a design space. Or, how do you finish a completed design out of AutoCAD and export it into a robotic layout station and go out there and be able to shoot those points. And so I think that's just going to maximize the efficiency of the training program and really let the individual apprentices play to their own individual strengths.
Man, that's amazing. And then those paths that you laid out, those even branch out into more specific things.
Yeah. There's
your path. You can dictate your own path in this, and especially in the pipe fitter trade and in other trades.
Absolutely,
you can dictate if you want to be something. That's what I did, and I know you've done it, and met plenty of other guys. Whatever you want to be in life, you can almost find that in our trade.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if we would need part 2, 3, maybe even 4 of this podcast if we were going to go through every possible pathway. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. Yeah. Like the resources, the tools, they're all there. And so it's just a matter of, what does the member want to do? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I knew a kid who was going through the apprenticeship, and he was actually still taking classes just in case just in case he didn't like the apprenticeship. He was still taking classes up at Red Rocks for something completely unrelated.
Yeah.
And he ultimately, he decided to stay in the trades.
And I think, you know, that's the nice part is, you know, you have some flexibility there. Pleasantly, you know, I think for the most part, you know, once people get into the program and get to working every day, they stay.
That was the only kid I ever knew that did that. And it was actually a kid that Johnny Casados and myself met at a gym. Stosh.
Oh yeah.
Stosh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He was at the gym. He's like, oh no, I'm going to be going to Red Rocks. I'm doing this. And he says, that's what I want to do. And I said, okay, that's fine. But we'd see him every time we come to the gym. We talk to him, and he decided I think it was a year he wasn't going to Red Rocks. And he's like, he was working at the gym, so he wasn't making that much money. He was just working at the front desk, checking people in on the computer, So he's like, oh, I'll give it a try. And he went down and signed up, but he still went up to Red Rocks and did those other courses that were not, quote unquote trades courses, but he's still in.
That's fantastic. And doing a great job for us.
Yeah.
Turned out to be a fantastic pipe fitter. So,
yeah,
I think whatever decision anybody ends up making, career decisions are big decisions, or tough decisions. You got to find something you're going to have some enjoyment. I mean, let's be honest. You're going to be at work more than anything else you do in your entire life, right? The vast majority of the hours that we have on the planet, are going to be spent at work. And so you got to find something you enjoy, or you're just going to be a miserable person. So find something that's enjoyable. Hopefully it pays you well enough to where you can enjoy a good middle-class life. And find that fit that helps you be successful as an individual. To our program, so at Pipefitters 208, at the apprenticeship program, 70% is our completion rate. And so when you look at really any school, any career pathway, you don't see a whole lot where you see that high of a completion rate, right? So, by far and away, more people that are getting into the program complete it and reach that journeyman status. If they don't, unfortunately, that still means that 30% of the folks that enter aren't completing. But that's because they're dropping out in their first year or whatever it might be, because they've learned that maybe there's something else that they want to do. So with a 70% completion rate and then a 98.5% job placement rate. So out of all the people that complete the 5-year apprenticeship program, 98.5% of them are in the job that they were trained for, making that $80, $90, $100,000+ a year, enjoying all the benefits of the industry provides. And out of the 1.5%, it isn't because we didn't have jobs for them. It was they decided to do something else, right? Whether it be they were able to buy investment properties and kind of go into an investment position where they have that income coming in, or they started some other business unrelated to the trade. So really, I mean, if you come down, your chances are going to be pretty high. You can look at every university in the country and find out their graduation rate, their job placement rate, and the average income of their graduates, 5 or 10 years after they graduate, and we're right there in the middle of it with the very best of them. And so it's legit.
Yeah, I agree. What would you tell somebody who's, maybe they don't know what they want to do. Maybe they are interested in trades, or obviously I don't want to say just construction, because we talked about so many other possibilities that are in the trades, but the trades in general. What would you say to somebody who's interested in trades? And then what would you say to make them consider union versus non-union? I know we already touched base on that, but just as a summary.
So where I would start is, one of the good things that Colorado's done is they created what they call an apprenticeship directory. And so anybody listening, watching, that directory is getting updated right now as we speak. And so some legislation passed this session down at the Capitol. And so the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment will have this updated apprenticeship directory website. Google Colorado Apprenticeship Directory. And what it'll do is it'll bring you to a website that'll literally show every registered apprenticeship program offered in the state of Colorado, because you have to register the programs, right? With the currently the Federal Department of Labor Office of Apprenticeship. July 1st, the state will actually be taking over that role with the State Apprenticeship Agency, but those performance metrics will be listed for every program. So you can search by trade, electrician, pipe fitter, plumber. You can search a lot of different ways. Find the programs that are, something that's interesting you, and then see how they're performing. See how many folks are actually completing. See how many folks are actually being, placed in the job and working in the industry that they were trained for. We talked about it at the very beginning of the podcast. Folks go to college, get a degree, and a whole bunch of them are working in fields that have absolutely nothing to do with the degree that they received, right? And so look at that. See which programs are actually performing and which ones aren't, and make educated decisions on where you're going to go apply. Then come down and explore. For us, if somebody comes down and they're a little unsure, they don't know if they really want to sign up and apply for a 5-year apprenticeship program, we have our pipe tradesman classifications. We have different ways to get people out in the industry working. See if it works. If you like it, apply for the apprenticeship program. It might be exactly what you've been looking for.
Man, I think that sums it up, man. I think that's a good place to end it, man. I really appreciate you coming. I feel honored to have you here as the leader of the local, and as someone who's in the same trade as me, and just the knowledge that you have, that you've shared with us. I hope people get the chance to watch this and learn a little bit. I do, and I really appreciate you coming.
Jeremiah, the pleasure is all mine. Really appreciate the invite and really the work you're doing. We're really, really good at building stuff. I think, it. We built the greatest things that we have in the state of Colorado, projects that we've
in
all
the
been
country.
on.
In the country.
In the country.
Yeah.
We're not really good at bragging about it. We're pretty terrible about that. And so when folks like yourself are doing things like this and getting the word out and helping people understand, how big the opportunities are and what kind of great benefits are offered, it makes us all better. So the pleasure was all mine, and I appreciate everything you do for the local, for our contractors, and for the rest of our members.
Yeah. Thanks again, Gary.
All right, brother.
Appreciate you.
Of course.
Right
Thank
on.
you.